Well, guys, it's man, just really energized. We've had a great day so far, just talking about really, what's on the horizon for our church. And today is kind of a different type of day. It's a super fun day as we just talk about really kind of more of a family conversation, like we're hanging out in a living room talking about what's on the horizon for Stone. But I do think it's important, even before we get to that, to take a few moments and celebrate the amazing things that God has done and is doing. And so, man, I just want you to really get ready to clap and celebrate a few of these things that we can thank the Lord for. Number one is did you know that the last 5 years, there have been somewhere around 500 people who have been water baptized? Come on, is that something to shout about or what? How many know that we don't just want to attend church, we want to be the church. We want to see lives being impacted for the kingdom. And then, man, it's been cool to see what the Lord is doing in the area of global missions because of your generosity and your heart and your giving. Able to support 50, 60 missionaries around the world. And so, man, it's not a stretch to say that you are helping change the world for Jesus, because as you support missions, we are part of the lives that are being impacted as those missionaries are faithful to the call that God has placed on their heart. And then not only that, but even just right here, locally here in Yakima County, it's been cool to see what the Lord is doing again through your serving and through your generosity. In fact, just on Christmas Eve, we received an offering, and then through, again, your generosity, we were able to purchase for Camp Hope that military-style tent that will allow them to really house more people at their homeless shelter. So, in fact, what I just heard this morning was by you purchasing that tent for them, they can immediately house 40 more people at Camp Hope for their homeless outreach. And so thank you for your giving towards that. And then there are other outreaches that if you've been around, your Vibrant Day and Garfield Day, and we had our spiritual journey called Paradox the last few months, and there were a lot of outreaches to our community that were a part of that. And it's been fun to hear some people share. We actually heard back from some of those places kind of saying, thank you. And I think it's important to pass this on, because really this is you. You've been a part of this. This is you. So we got a letter from the Yakima Police Department. And they said, to our friends at the Stone Church, I wanted to take a moment to thank you on behalf of the men and women of the Yakima Police Department. As you know, working in the field of law enforcement can be difficult. Though it has its rewards and can be very satisfying, we often find ourselves talking to people who do not like us or only want to see us when they need or want something. As a result, we are always amazed when someone stops and says, thank you. You folks not only took the time to say thank you, but you prepared and served us a wonderful meal. More importantly, you talked to us and offered fellowship. Though the meal was great, it was the kindness that you showed that really put a smile on everyone's face. So from all of us to all of you, thank you. Isn't that cool from the Yakima Police Department there? And then many of you are part of we've adopted Garfield Elementary, and you're part of that. And we do a thing called Reading Buddies there, where, again, many of you go and help kids in their reading. And this was an email that was passed on to me from the principal of Garfield. He says, the staff at Garfield Elementary would like to say a heartfelt thank you for your dedication to this new reading program. Maria Lepez and I met this week and reviewed our recent reading data on the students involved. And now this is all bolded right here. And we are already seeing measurable gains in nearly every one of these students. More importantly, Maria shared, that she noticed a shift in effort and attitude with several of these students that she works with in the reading intervention. Your encouragement and support is impacting the students. And that's all in bold right there. So isn't that a cool thing to kind of, and again, that's you, man, you're part of that. That's the ministry that you are doing. So it's been said that if your church closed its doors, would the community know it? And I know it's our heart as a church that our community would know it if our doors were worship. Not only that, but it's been fun to see our church grow. In 2013, we averaged on a particular Sunday around 735. And this year we'll average somewhere around 1,200 on a Sunday. So there's more and more people that are part of the church. But isn't it true that the reason we celebrate that is because that number represents lives and families and students and kids and moms and dads like a Sean and Christy Brown who are here and love the stories or heard about their story, how their life has been impacted. This past summer, their daughter went to summer camp. And she came back from summer camp. And she said, Mom and Dad, I want to go to church. And so they said, okay. And so they came to Stone, and he had not been in church for 20 years. And they came, and now God has done incredible things in their life. They're serving, they're active. They said we've fully given ourselves to the Lord, and they got baptized on our celebration Sunday in November. So we celebrate the lives and the stories because that's what those numbers represent. People and legacies and lives being impacted. But isn't it true that on one hand, man, we celebrate that, and we're excited about that? But how many know that we as individuals and as a church have to keep the pedal to the metal? That as long as there are people to be reached, we have to keep reaching out as a church to advance the kingdom of God. And that is a topic that is like perpetually on my mind. Lord, how can we keep reaching out? How can we keep making a difference for you? And so this last summer was kind of just thinking about that. Lord, what's next? Man, we're so grateful for what's taken place the last number of years, but what's the next 3, 4, 5 years look like? What can we do for your kingdom? And I was on my John Deere riding lawnmower. Just, how many know that God does good things when you're mowing your yards? So mowing my yard and just sense the Lord just kind of dropped this kind of vision statement on my heart, and it was this: a vision for the valley. What would the kingdom impact be if we were to put a campus of Stone within 10 minutes of every person in Yakima Valley? What would the kingdom impact of that be? And so I'm like, thinking about that. And so I go in, and I'm all dirty, and I mentioned it to Care a little bit later on, I think that night. And so we begin to talk about it and pray about it. But one thing we know is that if it's a vision from the Lord, it won't just be us. There will be a unity of leadership. And so this is around June, and so we met as a pastoral team at a coffee shop, and I just shared about here's kind of what I'm sensing, here's what I'm sensing the Lord is kind of leading us to do. And I would just say that in that coffee shop, there was this cool sense of like, man, the Lord is up to something. As different pastors began to speak just words of encouragement, and Matt began to talk about something about need to put our nets on the other side to have a catch, if you will, and Cher began to talk about just heart vision for Lower Valley and Zilla specifically. And kind of as we're in that meeting as a pastoral team, there was a sense of like, man, the Lord might be up to something. Man, what is the Lord doing here? And so I leave that and come here on that next Sunday, and I remember specifically it was Father's Day. And so I'm here, so we do all the services, and then I get to the end of the day, and I'm right there. I'm like 12 feet from where I am right now. I'm right there. And a wonderful gal from our church, walks up to me, who had absolutely no idea at all about just what I was praying about or what we were talking about. And she comes up to me, and I kept this in my journal here. She hands me a piece of mint, and she says, I don't remember the exact words, but she spoke of just like mint is pressed from a leaf. I'm really praying and believing for fresh vision for you. And I'm like, oh. because sister had no idea what we were just praying and thinking, asked God to kind of confirm. And so I'm like, I received that. Man, I received that, and I kept this mint, in my journal as a reminder of that confirming moment. So as we're kind of talking about, this vision, we wanted to give you kind of a reminder of that moment as well. So here is a mint air freshener for you. A mint vision I think they're mint. I've not smelled one yet myself. I'm trusting they're mint. I've been told they're mint. But, it's our, maybe hope and prayer that maybe you would take that air freshener and put it in your car. Maybe you've needed an air freshener, and this will be a double blessing to you. But what would you maybe put that, in your car, and maybe just as you smell that or see that, you would just say a brief kind of 3-second prayer for vision for the valley. And so have that moment, and then I go to our board. And this is around June. I say, guys, here's kind of what our team is sensing, kind of man, we're grateful for what God has done, but now what are we going to rally around the next season, and laid out the vision to them. And there was a sense of enthusiasm. And I remember very specific, one of our board members say, man, I sense a green light for this. And there was a sense of unity there. But I said, guys, can we take a month and just pray about this? And then let's come back in July. And if we sense this is of the Lord, we discern this to be the will of God for our church, then we will put a stake in the ground, and then we will just, go for it. And so we come back in July, and it was on a new topic for our board. We had talked about it and prayed about it and read books about it and had pastors speak to us about the whole multi-site church thing. So it was a new topic, but we came back in July, and there was a sense of, yes, we believe this is of the Lord, and this is what we are to be about. So, man, we put a stake in the ground and said, man, this is it. Let's go for it. Let's attack it with reckless abandon. And around the same time in this all season, we're talking to our elders who are spiritual encouragers in our church. And I remember very specifically in a September elders meeting, one of our elders, Rod Much, he said, Jeff, are you aware that really this vision has kind of been a part of the heart and DNA of Stone for many, many years from the very beginning? And I'd done a little bit of research, so I was aware of some of that, but I said, yeah. And then as you dive into it, you see that to be true. That kind of a vision for the valley has been a heart of Stone from the very beginning. Back in 1921, Charles Dellinger was a farmer, and he moved to Yakima. And because he was concerned that people would know about Jesus, he began to hold prayer meetings in his home. And that little prayer meeting began to grow. And so they had a church. And C.C. Douglas in December of 1921 was the first pastor of Stone Church. So our church is almost 100 years old. And they started at a building on 4th Street, and it was called the Little Brown Church. They called it the Little Brown Church. But the church, continued to grow, and so they got a larger building at 801 Summitview Avenue. If you know where Jag's Barbershop is here in Yakima on Summitview, that's the exact address of where Stone Church was, right there on Summitview. And as you research the history of our church of Stone, you see just pastor after pastor that's been very faithful and just carried the vision so well. One interesting note was that C.C. Douglas was the first pastor of Stone, and then years later he circled back around and was the 6th pastor of Stone as well. So he was the first and the 6th. But as you look at the history, you see that vision for the valley. An example is this. When C.C. Douglas, when they first started Stone, they took the youth group for 3 months down to Sunnyside. And from those 3 months of going down to Sunnyside, a continuing work began that is today Neighborhood Assembly of God, a church still thriving there in Sunnyside. How amazing is it to think about the fact that a church that was started from this group going down for 3 months is still impacting people 100 years later. And it even yes, that's awesome. And it even gets better. There was a couple there that was impacted for Jesus during those 3 months. They came to faith, and then 30 years later, their son, Cliff Hobson, became the pastor of Stone Church. So they became Christians, and then years later, their son became the pastor of the very church that reached out, that led them to faith. How many know that you never know the kingdom impact you're going to make as you're just faithful to do what you sense the Lord wants you to do? And then in 1944, Stone began a branch campus on Washington Avenue. A board member purchased a piece of property, and they put a branch campus there, and Stone sent Sunday school teachers there to staff it. They supported it with $100 a month, which you can imagine. I mean, that's a lot of money in 1944, right? $100 a month. And they supported that church for 10 years, from 1944 to 1954. In 1954, it became a sovereign church, Washington Avenue Assembly of God. It was a sovereign church for 5 years. Then in 1959, that church merged with another church, and they collectively took on a new name, Central Assembly of God, a church that is still thriving and impacting people here in Yakima today. In fact, if you remember, Jerry Galbraith served on our staff. He is currently the pastor of that church, Central Assembly. And there's even more recent stories of when the Selah Assembly of God shut down. Pastor Dale Carpenter reached out to the district to see if Stone could put a campus there, because we had people coming to Stone from Selah. And then they started a work in Tieton. And even more recently, some of you will remember that Stone launched out Ryan Aletsky and True Hope Church to Spokane. I realize that's beyond Yakima Valley, but I think it just communicates the heart of this church to go and reach people and do all we can to advance the kingdom of God. And here's what I believe. I believe that all the great things happening at True Hope Church in Spokane, Stone has a part in. Because this church helped launch them and launch that team and that church. We are part of the lives that are being impacted in Spokane. So like, I'm in my office. This is just a couple months ago. I'm in my office, and I'm reading this history, and I'm becoming like emotional in my office. Because I had no idea about this when the Lord just kind of laid this heart vision on my heart when I was mowing my yard. And I was saying, man, this is actually not a new vision at all. This vision for the valley has been a part of the heart and DNA of this church from the beginning. In fact, look at Pastor Dale Carpenter at a 75th anniversary booklet. Here's the quote that he put in this booklet here. He says, "We are deeply conscious of our mission to our city, and this end of what? Yakima County. Being to worship God, build up believers, and evangelize the lost, and accomplish all this in the supernatural power of the Holy Spirit." And so this is really what we sense the Lord is calling us to. This is what we sense really, that we are to rally around, to have a vision for the valley and put a campus of Stone within 10 minutes of every person in Yakima Valley. Is it a big vision? Yes. Is it freak me out a little bit? Yes. I've lost sleep over it. Okay, but could you imagine with me not adopting one elementary school, but like 4 or 5 elementary schools? Could you imagine with me not being just involved in just one community, but 4 or 5 different communities? Man, can we imagine for a moment not just one campus where people are coming to faith in Jesus on Sundays, but 4 or 5 different campuses where people are coming to faith in Jesus? What would the kingdom impact of that be? Think, imagine that. And so I just think, man, God, what could maybe we start that would impact people 30, 40, 50 years from now? Because here's my personal opinion. When we get done with like our journey together here at Stone in the next like say 30, 40 years, I don't think we're going to look back upon like our season together at Stone and wish we took fewer risks. I believe that we will be glad for each and every risk that we took, stepping out and believing God to use us to help advance His kingdom and His agenda in this county. I can't imagine that C.C. Douglas thought maybe 100 years ago of the lives that would be impacted, the amount of people that would be baptized, the missionaries that would be supported, the missionaries that would be sent out. But I think God could maybe use us. Could you use us to start something that would impact people for many, many, many years? Now, I'm sure you're here and you're like, man, Jeff, this will help us. What? We got a lot of questions. Next week, we'll be talking about a lot more details and timelines and kind of hopefully people get their head around this. But let me give you kind of a 30,000-foot view just for a couple of minutes. So we're believing this fall to launch our first campus. And so beginning this fall, we will be one church, but with multiple campuses. But we will be one church. So just like when you walk into a McDonald's or Starbucks or Safeway, wherever it might be, whenever you walk into one of those locations, you are walking into Starbucks or Safeway or Walmart or whatever it might be. So we will be one church with multiple locations. I will be the lead pastor of them all, so I'm ultimately responsible for all of the campuses as we go forward in Vision for the Valley. But we will have campus pastors at each of the different campuses who will be a face at the place. We will then have a teaching team that will kind of rotate around to the different campuses. And I think kind of some of the heart and the why is kind of maybe helped explained by this illustration I saw that I think is helpful to kind of communicate why this is so important. So here's some kind of an islands illustration, if you will, that kind of I think helps communicate. So think in terms of there we are in the middle, and then you have these different maybe communities of people that are separated by some distance, and in this illustration there's water. Here is a fact that I read that was very, I think stirring is probably the right word, that when an unchurched person is looking for a place to go to church, they will typically look within 2.5 miles of where they live. Now, that'll stretch out to 5 miles if there's relationship, but unchurched people are looking within, 2.5 and 5 miles of where they live. And so what kind of gets me a bit is if you look at, say, the 250,000 people who are part of Yakima County, there are thousands upon thousands upon tens of thousands of people that we are not currently ideally positioned to reach. That in a sense, if you look at this island illustration, again, the distance creates a barrier for them to attend. And what multi-site does is multi-site becomes a bridge, if you will, to really allow us to cross and go to these communities and help reach them. It kind of communicates the message, not that, hey, we hope that maybe one day you'll kind of stumble into us. But it communicates the message that we as a church believe in the Great Commission. We believe in going, and we want to do all we can to go to these communities to help reach people for Jesus, that we're willing to go. And I think maybe a logical and good question is like, well, where are we starting, Jeff? Where are we going first? If there's that's 4 or 5 campuses, where are we going? Okay, so get ready to clap. Okay, get ready to clap. And get ready to cheer, okay? So I need all of that, okay? Get ready to clap, get ready to cheer, and be excited and freak out and all that kind of stuff. So we pray and we read and we drive around and we talk to people and we see mentors speak into us and we're like, okay, where are we going to start? Where are we going to start? So this fall, in 9 months, we are believing it's going to be a new day at Stone, launching our first campus, and so get ready to freak out and go crazy. Our first campus is going to be Stone Sila. And our first campus pastor will be Matt and Kelly Alexander. Now, here's the deal. Matt will be sharing more next Sunday, just about some of his heart and story, so don't miss next Sunday. But Matt, Kel, just share for a few moments just about your enthusiasm for Stone Selah.
Pretty exciting, huh?
Yes.
Well, let me tell you this. 2 emotions going through our veins right now. Number 1, freaking out. We are freaking out. There's a good thing about that, though. When I realize when I'm freaking out, when Kelly's freaking out, it means that God is the only one who can do what he's going to do.
Yes, come on.
I can't rely on me. If it's done by me, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Here's the best part, is it's going to help us as a family, us as a community,
Yeah.
to raise the level of our faith
Yeah.
and to raise the level of our trust in what God can do.
Yeah.
Because there's people hurting in Selah right now who need somebody to come and just go, we love you.
Yeah.
That brings excitement.
Yes.
I am excited. We are excited. We're stoked to go into Selah, to be a light
Amen.
in a dark place. And I'll tell you what, they have no idea what is coming, but it's going to be good. Amen?
Come on, amen. Give it a wild applause to Matt and Kelly, the faithfulness and availability. So, you know what you may or may not know is every Sunday when we have first or second time guests, we send guest surveys to them and they can share with us what was their experience like. And I want to share just some of the responses that we have received because you are a key part of them. Here's parking. The gentleman assisted with parking greeted me as I drove in, asking me if this was my first time and directed me to a guest spot in front of the church. Look at the next one right here. I had many people greet me and help me figure out where to find things. I was very nervous initially because, look at this, it's been a very long time since I attended church. I left feeling what? Very peaceful. Look at that. Thanks to all the greeters. Lots of people were there to greet newcomers who were genuinely welcoming. And that's really what all the guest surveys we hear, and again, it's a credit to you guys about just how friendly this church is, how friendly you are. How about this? The amount of teenagers serving the church. What up, teens? Yeah. Okay, the children's program was awesome. They were so welcoming and made my kids feel completely at ease and excited. How about this? The music moved me. It's been a few years since I attended church, and some songs nearly moved me to tears. The Lord just kind of speaks, and I enjoyed the worship music and also the church's passion to serve the communities and do outreach. And then, how about this? I felt really comfortable and like I belong there after the first time. I was greeted warmly in the parking lot, at the entrance, and walking into the auditorium. Everyone was so kind to me. And so, man, that's you. Man, that as you're serving Kids World, as you're serving as a greeter and as a host and cafe and turnaround team and parking and students, that's you. And you're making a difference in the lives of people. And so now, like our mission, our heart, our agenda, if you will, is now we got to create that in other communities. We got to take that to people, that same heart and warmth and love and compassion. We don't need to replicate that in different communities. And so I think a logical and good question is, well, Jeff, how much is this, going to cost? What's it going to cost? Well, if you were to go online and Google or research, well, how much does it cost to plant a campus, if you will, then you'll see numbers all over the map. But a number that you will see frequently is the number $250,000. But we feel like we can do it for less than that. We feel like we can launch Stone Selah for about $175,000. Now, would you raise your hand if you like good news? You like good news? Raise your hand if you like good news. Here's the good news is we've already had a great amount of money that's been given or committed to Stone Selah, to Vision for the Valley. In fact, check this out right here. So we need $175,000. We already have $122,491. Can you celebrate that right there? That's good. That's good news. Is that like what? Is that like 2/3? Are we 2/3 there? We're over 2/3. You need mathematicians in the house? We're over 2/3 there in cash or commitments. And so the 52,000 number is kind of where we need to get over the top. And so what we're asking people to do is just kind of prayerfully consider being a part of this. And so I'm going to invite you to grab this card that you received. And if I can just say this, I'm just a little weird. So if I can just say to you who are here for like the first, second, or third time, and you're like, oh, this church is asking me for money. We're actually not a church that asks for we're not all about asking for money. And if you were here for like 3 or 4 or 5 months, you would see that. So you just happen to catch us on one of those Sundays where we're kind of having like a family conversation, kind of a time of looking to the future and vision. So you kind of happen to catch us on that Sunday if you're here for the first time. So please don't feel obligated or pressured in any way. No way. We're just glad that you are here today. But if you are, it's part of Stone, and this is your church, and you're kind of part of the heart and vision of the church. We just love if you'd pray about helping us get over that next $52,000. And so what we're needing is that in the next 9 months. And you can see that there's a place that you can put a one-time gift or a monthly gift for the next few months. And here's our hoping and asking that would you maybe take this home and maybe send it back to us this week. There's a few things you can maybe take it home and talk about it and pray about it, and maybe mail it back to us on Tuesday or Wednesday, but maybe tomorrow you can put it in the mail, or Thursday, whatever it might be. Can you mail it back to us this week? Or maybe you want to take it and pray about it and talk about it and bring it back next Sunday. We will have a time of collecting these in the service next Sunday, or maybe in just a moment. We're going to give people a chance to kind of respond and pray. You'll know the Lord will kind of maybe drop a number on your heart, and you can put it in the offering bucket here in just a moment. But here's what I'm asking people to do is just pray if the Lord would maybe want you to be a part of this, kind of launching this. And just invite you kind of how Kara and I have approached this is we kind of think about 3 R's. There's reason giving, realignment, and revelation giving. And that's kind of the process that we went through ourselves. Okay, what can we reasonably afford to give for this church the next 9-10 months? And then what can we maybe realign? And we've done that. We got a kind of a big anniversary coming up this fall, and we're saving for a trip, but we kind of realign some of those funds to this, and we'll kind of see how that goes. And so we kind of realigned. And then, to be honest, there's a revelation amount that we're like, man, we don't know where this money's going to come from, but we're just going to kind of step out and trust and believe. And it was like, okay, and so we kind of put those 3 together, and there's kind of the number that we thought, okay, we'd be excited. We'd be excited if we could give that to this. Again, it's not all like right there, but we would be excited to give that. And so part of my heart is that love for this to be a faith-stretching thing, not just for us as a church, but also for us as individuals. That maybe this is a faith, hey, I'm going to step out in faith, kind of revelation. We'll just see how the Lord provides it, But I think part of the question is, man, what would maybe we be excited to give? And then kind of allow the Lord to kind of funnel those funds, through us. And so we just have a time of response. And as the worship team sings a song, and I think this can look differently for different people. Maybe you're here right now, and you'll take maybe a few moments and pray for Stone Selah. Pray for the people of Selah. Maybe you're here and I'm going to just pray for Matt and Kelly as they launch out as our campus pastor. Maybe for you, it's, hey, you're going to talk and pray just as a couple or as an individual about, man, Lord, what would you have us give? And maybe God would just kind of speak to your heart, and you can drop this in the offering bucket in just a moment. That's great. Maybe if you just want to kind of pray about, Lord, how could I just kind of be a part of this in a tangible way as far as volunteering? And you want to kind of pray about that. But could we just kind of take a few moments right now, just us and the Lord, and respond as the worship team sings this song?